Anything on that side? Okay.
Still spinning on my side.
Yeah,
Good enough.
now it's
Nice.
working.
Nice, 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 nice. Thanks everyone. So let's start it then. Hi everyone. Welcome back to Angler Singapore, and thanks so much for joining the meetup today. And today we will have Yadong Xie, a special guest. He will share about Angular library from beginner to advanced. But before we go into the talk, let go through the boring stuff, which is some introduction. So like I mentioned, the agenda is going to be we do some introduction, and then we have the talk, and then we have some Q&A after that. But this section can always be very flexible, so we can decide. And then after the Q&A, we will move to the open announcement, and anyone can feel free to jump in and just say hi. And the code of conduct here is very simple. We have the speaker, so be nice to the speaker, be nice to everyone, and I'll try also be nice to everyone. But in some situation which is not like what we're expecting, we have the right to let people leave the meetup. So it's just basic stuff. And the next meetup is gonna be on the 3rd of June, and it is on 11 p.m. The reason why I will show you later on is going to be a surprise. But we try to do the meetup of Angular Singapore every first Tuesday of the month. Like I will try to stick to the calendar, and we try to be at 7 p.m. Singapore time. But sometimes we have speaker from other country, so that's why the next one is going to be at 11 p.m. But I hope it is still good for you guys. And we have the Discord channel within the Angular Discord. So you can find Angular Singapore into this link. I will send it in the chat later on, so you can come and ask questions, and this is where we do announcement. So basically it's like where we can do some discussion. The other thing is like we have this YouTube channel where we will record the talk, and also some office hour, which is like some live stream over the weekend. Could be me doing some coding stuff, and my friend and I, we will do some coding stuff, and we will discuss thing. So feel free to jump in. We also provided the support for everyone. So if you are stuck on any problem like Angular specifically, or any technical advice, just feel free. There's a link to book a meeting. I will send it into the chat later on, so you don't have to remember it. But yeah, through it, I've been talking to a lot of nice people, including Krishna. He inside the meeting today, so yeah, feel free to get a meeting with me, and we can just talk. I'm not guaranteed to provide the best thing ever, but yeah, we can talk, and then sometime during the discussion we find something interesting. And if you want to talk speaking at Angular Singapore, feel free to drop me the talk, and then we will just arrange it in the future talk. But if you wanted to see any speaker like in Angular Singapore, also can just drop a message. I will try to arrange. Like you want to see some people from Angular team or from other like library you wanted to see, feel free. I'm open to it. Also, we have the Angular APAC channel within the Angular Nation Network, which is the initiative that created by my friend Bonnie, which is GDE. So we have a lot of channel inside the Angular Nation, and Angular APAC is one of the channel that I also be the host. So the next meeting is going to be tomorrow on the 5th of May at 9 p.m. Singapore time zone. You can go in and do the sign up, and you can see a lot of meetup just coming up. And sometimes we can talk to the Angular team. Sometimes we can talk to a lot of people. So like the big guy. So feel free to create an account, and then we see you from there. And we have Singapore JS here in Singapore. We have Junior Dev SG. We also have Talk CSS. We have React.js, and now we have Angular Singapore. And with that, so just a few etiquette before we start the talk. So if you have any questions, just feel free, maybe you just write it down so you don't forget it later on. And during the Q&A, feel free to drop in a question. Or if you're not comfortable to speak, you can just type the question into the chat, and we can just have you to open, like just have you on that. And yeah, I think that's it. And okay, that part we do. So no need. I'll just prepare a slide in case I forget. And with that, I will hand it over to Yadong, and we will talk about Angular library from beginner to advanced. Yadong, 你准备好了吗？
Okay. Let me share my screen, and thanks, Chong. And let me share.
Okay, I think I get it right.
Yeah.
Everyone, it is meaning, are you ready in China?
Yeah, your Chinese is great. Yeah.
I'll try
Okay.
to do it.
Can you hear see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay.
Yep, I think it's
yeah.
good for me.
Hi everyone. My name is Yadong. Glad to see you in Angular Singapore. I want to briefly introduce myself first. I'm a senior front-end engineer at Alibaba, Google developer expert in Angular. I love the concept of open source and enjoy the open source software. I created nGzoro about 4 years ago, and you can see the screenshot here. And it is a set of high-quality UI components to help Angular developers to build rich, beautiful, and interactive user interfaces. The GitHub project has more than 7,000 stars and more than 100,000 downloads in NPM every month. Today, I'm going to talk about Angular library, beginner to advanced. The first thing I want to talk about is the performance. For component library, performance is the first factor to consider. Here, I will describe some ways to improve the performance of the component library. My most recommended way is to use check once instead of check always. Change the change detection strategy to unpush will help your library skipping unnecessary value checks. Here is an example.
I think it's quite advanced for everyone because yeah. So just go ahead. I think people will understand it.
Okay. Here we have two components. The first one is the lib component. The next one is the business component. And when let me see here. And please note here we add a check function here and a template binding here. It means every time there is a component variable check, this function would run. And let me see the unpush component. We add another component here. This means mouse move check. In this component, we add the event listener of the mouse move. Let me see what would happen. When the mouse move inside the business component, you can see these check functions are running very frequently, right? This means when you have two components, they are in the same Angular library or in the same Angular applications. When the component functions are checked, the other component beside it would run again, and again. And when we add the change detection unpush here, let me see it again, you would find that the check functions won't be run frequently, right? Remember, this would please note here, the constant.log is a side effect function. You should never add it in your production applications. But here we can see every time Angular would check it if the change detection is not the unpush mode. Let me show you again, right? And when you add unpush here, Angular would skip the check. But remember, this would improve your library performance, but it also have paid. For example, let me add an array here. Let me show you. Array here, and okay. And if there's not under unpushed mode, and when 3 seconds after this array changed to 2, 3, 4, right? It happened. But when we add unpush here, after 3 seconds, nothing happened, right? But when we add change detection with .macfo check, it would change again, right? Okay, this is the first one. When you want to change the variables binding to the template in the change detection unpush mode component, you need to macfo check yourself. This is the first note you need to understand. And the second is that just import here. Let me comment all of these lines. Okay, we don't need it. You can see this is array, and we import it from the parent component, right? And you can see 1 3 seconds after, we push 1 to the array, right? But there's nothing happen here. Let me change the other way. This would work. Because we need to change the array from mutated to immutable way. Okay, we cannot mutate it. If we mutate it, Angular won't know when it is under unpush mode. This is the second thing you need to understand is we need to change the input in immutable way, not in mutated way. Okay. The second is here we just remove the input, and we remove the input here and here. Okay. Here, remember here we add change the array inside the component. For a moment. Okay, we change the array inside the component, and nothing would happen because we need to macfo check. But there's other way. Angular would help us to detect the changes. That is the click. Let me child emit. Okay. Here we add a button here, and this is our child component of the app unpush child. It is a child component of this child, and when the child component emit event, and we subscribe here, and when we click, Angular would check this component for us. Let me see it again. When we click it, remember this array here is already 2, 3, 4, but the template binding, there's nothing here. And when we click here, and because we subscribe the child component event, so Angular will do it for us. So there are 3 ways to trigger the change detection in unpush component. The first one is the child component emit and subscribe. Angular will do it automatically for us. The second is to to change the input in immutable way. Second is the third is call the macro check all check changes directly. This would to force Angular to check the binding from the variable to the template. Okay, so let me back to the keynote. The first one is to change from the check always to the check once, because we use the unpush mode, and the check functions won't be called when the mouse moves in the business component, and this will result in better performance of our component. And you need to be aware that in the unpush mode, the text interpolation won't be updated unless the following three situations occurs. The first one is the subcomponent events are subscribed and triggered. The second one is the immutable update of the input of the component. The third one is the manual trigger check functions are marked dirty, such as change detection ref.mark4check. Okay, the first one is my most recommended one, and there are also other options than this, such as detach the change detector, setting zone flag, and you can even make your component library run outside zone. I have left some relevant information on the keynote if you are interested. Let me show the zone flag part. Remember, we have the check function here. Let me show. And if there's no unpush, remember what would happen? The check would run frequently, right? But we have here, let me show you, the zone flags part. The document in the Angular is not very clear, but I can show you here. Flag. Remember, this is the Angular.io guide zone, this part. And we can disable some patron-specific event names. And when we create a file called zone flags, and we uncomment here, and we import it here. Okay, you can see what would happen. Nothing happened here, right? Even I move my mouse, and we didn't enable the unpush mode, but this function won't run very frequently, right? Because we disable the mouse move event through the zone flags. We can also disable other event names through the zone flags. If you want to build an Angular library, you can support something like this, and it would make your Angular library performance better. Okay, this is the performance part. And if you have any question, and we can talk it later. And let me go on to the next part, the bundle size. The analysis shows that JavaScript bundle size is still the number one reason for making browser apps slower. Package size should be a key consideration when you are developing a component library. My first advice is to think twice before adding any dependency to your library. Here is a comic about the implementation. You can see this is a code base. It is amazing how such a small thing can do so much. But when we look at the dependency, there are quite a lot of dependency here, and this would make our dependency or our entire library out of control. in 2016, the left pad published. Let me see here. Okay, it's old news from about 2016. The title is Coder Unpublished 17 Lines of JavaScript and Broke the Internet. The package is called LeftPad. Let me show you. This package is only about 17 lines. And when the creator of it unpublished in NPM, and a lot of other packages stopped working at that day because they all depend on that. It is so unbelievable because this year there's about 3 million downloads every week of this package. But do you know you can also don't need this package at all because you can call pad start from the string, and you don't need it at all. The first thing is that I want to say some dependencies are not necessary at all. You can use the native JavaScript instead of the dependency. And if you have to introduce some dependencies, such as some dependency to handle the date or something, please note whether they can be tree shaken. Take moment.js, for example. The internationalization could not be tree shaken by default. In the moment, let me show you. That would be about 2 megabytes of the moment if you dependence a moment on your library, and all of it could not be tree shaken at all. And so when you need to add a dependency, you have to take a look at it and to see if it could be tree shaken. Remember, ECMA script modules is better than CommonJS. Here's why. Minko have an article to describe why CommonJS is making your bundles larger. You can check it later. Okay. Last suggestion is if you have to add a lot of dependencies in your Angular library, you can create secondary entry points to split your dependency of your library. For example, you have 2 or 3 modules in your library, and you can create 3 or 4 secondary entry points. So maybe your first module dependency of the moment, and the second one dependency of some other library. And if the users only need the second one, he won't need to install moment, right? And here we have this. This is the default library builder of Angular called ngPackage. And here are some details of how to build secondary entry points. And this one is the Angular package format. Here's the latest version. And you can see how Angular built its package format. And here is the when we need primary entry point and when we should use the secondary entry point. Okay.
Maybe like, can you just explain to people like what is the secondary entry point, because maybe not everyone is familiar with it. It's just maybe just a brief explanation. What is it? Maybe it's easier for you. Yeah.
Okay. The secondary entry point, let me show you. When you want to import some modules from the Angular core, this is the primary entry point, right? But if you want to import something like the HTTP client module, you need to import from the .@Angular common HTTP, right? And take our component library, for example. When you want to introduce a button, you need to introduce from the ng0 and d button. You cannot introduce from ng0 and d. This is secondary entry point. And why it is useful? Because we have other experimental components. For example, we have this code editor. It depends on the Monaco editor. If we only have the primary component library, everyone who wants to use ng0 have to install the Monaco editor in their dependencies. And in the secondary entry component, only user who want to use the code editor need to install the Monaco editor. The others won't be needed to edit in the dependency. This would help to split the dependencies of the component library. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think people will get a better picture. I mean, I know what it is, but maybe other not.
Okay. Okay. My last suggestion is use the Angular official dependency. I strongly recommend the developer key component developer kit. We use it from the first version of the Angular CDK because it provides a lot of functions and features such as the clipboard, the layout, the drag and drop, and the text field, and a lot of things. It is the official component of Angular, and it would offer a lot of help to build Angular libraries if you want. Okay. Here, this part is about the bundle size. The next part is usability. If you have ever developed an Angular component library, you will have noticed that although Angular have a lot of specifications, there are still many ways to achieve the same functionalities. These different ways can make all difference to the user experience. I want to take some examples. The first one is the element selector versus attribute selector. Okay, let me open the demo again. The button. We want to build a button component. There are two ways to build it. The first one is the element selector way. This is the most common way. For example, we want to build a component, button component, and we want to add a prefix and a suffix to the content of it. And we will add it here and here. And it works. Let me show you. A button and a button, right? But we also have another way to build the button component. We can make the selector to use the attribute selector here. And we can also have the prefix and suffix and the ng content. And when we use it, we just edit the button, native button element. Okay, which one do you think is better? In ng0, we use the second one. You can see the button component here is the attribute selector, not element selector. Please note, it is a wait. this is a component, not a directive, but we can still use the attribute selector in a component. And we need to disable the TS lint here, but in our component, we have other TS lint configurations, and so it won't be a problem if you want to build a component library. So why we need to use attribute select here? Let me show you. When I want to disable the button, I think it is a quite common request if you are using a button component, right? Disabled. You can see what happened. The second one, because we use the button directly, so the disable work as expected. Even we don't have this one, still can work because this attribute is the native attribute of the button. But if you want to implement the same attribute here, we need to do something like at import disabled, right? We have to do a lot of things. How many things we need to do? Let me show you if you want to completely support a button. Let me show you. Autofocus, right? You need to implement yourself, autocomplete, and disabled. Type, right? Submit, reset, the name, value, a lot of things. If you are using a button component, I suggest to use the attribute select, okay? Something like, there are other examples. Let me show you the import component, right? In ng0, the import component is also a directive selector, attribute selector, because we don't want to rewrite. Remember here, we don't want to rewrite all of the attributes here. It is impossible for component library, right? Okay. So my suggestion is that use attribute selector when you want to supporting original attributes, or you want to change the behavior of DOM elements, or you want to keep the structure. Because when you use component selector or element selector, there would be another tag in the component, in the DOM tree, right? Let me show. If this is a element selector, it would have a parent called an import, ng0 import on anything else. And if you have a selector, something like this, something like, let me show you. Yeah, okay. Something like first child or not last child. All CSS selector would broken, right? If you add a parent tag or parent element of it to it, right? So if you want to keep the DOM structure, attribute selector is better than the element selector, okay? And here is another example how the attribute selector works. Let me show you one moment. Here, okay. Here, I write a savelink module. What is savelink? Let me show you here. Yeah, Here is an article talk about the link to cross-region destinations are unsafe. If you are using the Lighthouse to audit your website, and you may be familiar with this, because if you have a link with target blank but won't have the real no opener, and the Lighthouse will warning you that it would have it is unsafe. And although in the latest version of Chrome, Chrome would add this automatically, but we also need to protect users from the latency browsers, right? So let me show you how we can automatically add this all in Angular, okay? Here, I add some link here. Okay. The first one is the not safe link because it don't have the no opener. The second one is the safe link. And if I check here and find yeah, it is correct because this is no opener, there's no opener. Okay. And we write a directive here. The selector is a little complex, but I think you can understand it. The selector selects the link with target blank and don't have the no opener, right? And we just add no opener to it if we find the selector, and we imported it in the back module. Okay, every link here becomes safe, and we can highlight the unsafe one. And when we comment this line, it would work and make all of our link safe slant. Okay, here is the example how attribute selector can change the behavior of the DOM elements. And in ng0, the button and the input component all use the attribute selector, and you can check it later. Okay. The second part is the ng template and the ng content. I think most of the Angular developers must have used ng template and ng content a lot of times. But do you know how and when we should use ng template and when we should use ng content? Let me show you an example. Let me wait for a moment. Let me delete this line and let me open the template page. Okay. Now we have two components. The first one is the content, app content. Let me look inside it. It's very simple, right? Only ng content here. And the second one is template. The template component import a template ref and render it inside the component. When we want to use this, let me see. We just projection the app child into the app content. The second part, we declare the app child in the ng template and pass the template in the app template, right? And we can have the same function and render exactly the same, right? But when we should use ng content and when we use ng template. Let me show you in the keynote. Okay. You should use ng template when you need to create multiple copies. This is the first thing. Let me show. If you want to create multiple copies of the child of the component, we only have the app child here. And if you want to copy it, we can pass here, and we will have a lot of child, but we cannot do it here, right? You will have a lot of ng content and nothing would happen, right? Yeah. We want to copy the child, we need to use the ng template. And the second is that when we want to lazy load child component, it might be a little confusing. What is the lazy load? Okay, let me add a console.log in ng-init in the app child component. This means when the app child init, it would console log init here, right? There's two init here because it is init here once and the second times, right? But if we want to add something like this, ng if false, and add it here. This note here, we add two ng if. That means this part won't be rendered, and this part won't be rendered either, right? But you see, we still have init here. We don't render it, but the child component still init. And let me see. Init is still here, right? It means that if we use ng content to projection a component into the other component, the hooks like ng-init would be always called in the child component. If we want to lazy load the component, something like app child component, something like we call some HTTP, something like heavy calculation, or something else, we should do this in the ng template way, and we should do it here, right? Because when the ng if is false, it won't be called of the ng-init. If we projection it into the ng content, the ng-init will be still called whenever it is init or not, render or not, sorry. Okay. Here is the demo of our component tabs, right? Let me show you. Yeah, we have these tabs, right? Tab set 1, 2, 3, right? And if we have content inside here, every time before you click tab 2, the content in tab 2 have already been on init. How to avoid this? We have the lazy load part. And if you want to lazy load, you need to wrap it in the ng template. And you can see this and this just init. And when we click this, nothing happened. When we click this, yeah, I will init when the tab active, right? I will init when the tab active. This is the how to use the lazy load if you want to make the component init when the tab active or something else part. The second demo is the space. You can see here we can define the space split, right? Because we need to define it once, and but there are two here, right? We copy it. The space is the divider here, here, and we define here, and we copy and paste here, here. Okay, if it is not in the ng template, we cannot copy it, right? We can only move it. Here is another demo of how to use ng template instead of ng content. Okay. Let me come to the last one of the projection child component and the virtual child component. This one is maybe a little hard to understand, but I can give you some demo. Let me show you the demo. Projection. Okay. Let me show you here. We can see it one by one. The first one is the projection child. We have the projection parent and the projection child. And let me see in the projection parent. There's only ng content here, right? And we look at the projection child. There's only ng content. This one is really simple because all we need to do is to add something inside the child component and projection the index into the child component and the child component projection itself into the projection parent, right? So we have 1, 2, 3 here. Let me see it again. The projection parent only ng content, right? The projection child also only ng content. This is the projection child component. All we need to do is projection it into our component. This is very common in our Angular component. Let me show you here. Something like card. Everything you define here would just projection inside it, right? You define 3 paragraphs, and let me see, 3 paragraphs. Yeah, all of them are inside here. Nothing special, right? This is a projection child component, and the other part is much more complex, called virtual child component. What is a virtual child component? We have component here, and we have a virtual part and a virtual child. And let me see it again. They are almost the same, right? 1, 2, 3, and the child, the parent, right? But it is different from the simple projection component. And let me show you. The first, we look at the virtual child component. We have the ng content, but we wrap it with the ng template. Okay. And we get the ng template by view child. Here is the template. Let me see the virtual parent component. There's no ng content here, right? As a parent, if you want to projection something inside it, we may need to here. We need the ng content. but there's nothing here, right? We have content children. Get the virtual child component and render it in other ways, not the default ways. Let me show what happened in the final part, projection. Okay. So what is the difference between the virtual projection and the default projection? There's nothing different if you only want to projection it as default, but if you want to do something in the parent component, let me show you. Yeah, even though we projection they are used the same way, but in the virtual child component, we can fully control the parent component, the style, and the template. We can add something like can add a split here. Another way. Wait. But we cannot do anything in the projection way, right? Because all of them are just projection them inside the parent component, and we cannot control them. This is very useful when you want to do some custom complex template, or you want to reorganize the input template. Here is a demo. Let me show you. In our select component.
Okay. I think the internet was a bit slow just now, so maybe you can just show it slow. And we are running short of time, just FYI.
Oh, okay. This is the last one.
Okay.
This is the last one. Okay.
No worries. Okay.
And
yeah, just show it, and then we can go to the Q&A.
Okay. Yeah, this is the last one. You can see the option here. We didn't projection it because the option is not in the component at all. There's no option here, or here. The option is a virtual component. And when we click it here, we add the render it in the option item. We render another component instead of the input component. Yeah, this is the virtual part, and this is the first example, and the second example is the table. And when you use the table, you can see the table head, table body, and a lot of other things. But if you check it here, let me show you fixed header. You can see the table body and the table head has projection into other places, not into the default places. We just move it and reorganize the template through the virtual child component. Okay. Yeah, this is all I want to talk about the Angular library from the performance part, the bundle size part, usability part. And if you have any questions, you can ask me in the Q&A part. Okay, thank you. Thanks, John. That's all the talk.
Okay, thanks, Yadong. I mean, that's a lot of nice tip. And first of all, can you send the StackBlitz link into the chat? I think there's a
yeah. Let me send the StackBlitz chat.
Praven was asking for it. And yeah, now is the time for question, everyone. I know we are running a bit short in time today, but you have something else to do, feel free to leave. And if anyone can stay, feel free to stay. I have no objection on that. Yeah. So yeah, now is the time to ask a question. Feel free, just unmute yourself and then just speak directly. No question. That is strange. Okay, okay. So there's the first one from Siwat then. You can also look into the chat, Jalong. There's a
Okay. I have seen it.
yeah. So what is it?
Yeah. Let me give you a link. Daniel. Okay.
So what is the key difference between an application developer and a library developer? That is interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I just let me show you. Wait for a moment and share my screen. I just send a link in the conversation, and maybe you can see, and you can open the link. And I think this is the most this is very clear if you visit this site. And let me show you. When every time Angular runs and you click something, you can see this part is run on the unpush mode, and you can see the unpush part isn't checked, was not checked, right? Check here, and not here, right? Let me show you again. Not check here, right? And if we mark for check here, we click once, and you can see it is checked, right? And detect changes. Okay, let me see. If I click detect changes, you can see the child of it would something like application ref.tick. And if we detect changes the unpush part, and it would detect changes the child of it. And if we mark for check of it, and it won't be checked at once. It would be checked on the next tick. Okay, I don't know if this can answer your questions. Okay.
So Sabria, do you understand it? I mean, maybe I haven't really get the graph thing, so maybe easier to look at it later on.
Okay, this repo is really useful because you can, let me see GitHub. Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah, this link, and yeah, you can see here. You can see me here, right?
Okay.
I contributed to it and to upgrade it to now it is not the latest Angular version, but it can work. Okay.
Yeah, sure, I understand. So if anyone has any the other way to like explain about mark for check and detection, feel free to unmute and then can just do it. I mean, I'm not an expert on that, so so I cannot give the proper answer. The other question was like from Siwat. He was asking, as a library author, what is the key difference between an application developer and the library developer?
Okay. I think as a library developer, you need to know much more than the application developer, because when you are an Angular application developer, most of the work, maybe you are using some third-party libraries, right? And maybe you are using the Angular material, Angular, maybe Premenji, or something else. But when you are a library developer, you need to take care of the performance and to check the Angular issues, and to something like to talk with Angular team about IFC, something like when some features are implemented, or some functions are deprecated, we need to take care of this. And but if you are only a application developer, Angular would take care all of this for you, and you won't need to care too much about the source code and of Angular or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, that I agree, because like if you are just building an application, usually we will have a set of components coming from other library, and we can just use it. But when you need to build this library for other people to use, I think there's a lot more use case to think about. And yeah, of course, there's a lot of bug fixing from like coming from community. We also need to spend time to triage the bug from the community, because it is not within the organization. So there could be a lot of issue, and then we need to decide which one to fix and all of this stuff. Yeah, I think that is a good point. And okay, we have a few more questions. So Dimala, sorry if I didn't pronounce the name correctly. He wanted to ask, if he set up multiple entry point, would it be possible to download only a certain component of the library while ignoring the other?
Oh, okay. It is impossible to do this. And if you want to only download a certain part of the components, I think you want the monorepo, not the you need the multiple repo, not the monorepo, because the secondary entry points only works as we publish the whole library, and we just add some entry points of it. And when you install or download it, all of the components are inside the package. But I think it should not be concerned, because the other part, when you don't import them, they won't be in the bundle size, and the Angular would tree-shake them for you, and yeah.
The Maya, do you have any input about this answer? Just feel free to unmute yourself. You are.
Hey, thanks for answering that. So basically, it's about tree shaking the multiple entry points, isn't it?
Yeah, because we the library authors who support the secondary entry points, because most of the reasons is to split the dependencies, right? If you only need part of the components, and you don't need to install the dependency of the other parts, and if the download part, you need to download all of the components of the library, but it won't affect the bundle size or the performance of your application if you only import part of them, right?
Thanks so much.
Oh, okay. So if you good, we can move to the next question then. So I think it's like what you are asking was like you set up multiple entry point, which is similar to the secondary entry point, I think. And with that, it can do the tree shaking properly for you. And there's one question from Cho. I'm not sure if he's still in the meeting. Cho, feel free, speak up, man. Okay. I think he's not here anymore. Oh, okay. So he was asking about the ng content and ng template. So what is the difference in the injection tree, injector tree for the child component? Which injector tree does the content child and the template child inherit? You can see the question on the chat.
Okay. The first I see the first question is life cycle hooks. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think it is a much a little complex. I can find a link for you.
Okay.
And and the second one is okay. The first, the same life cycle, we are instantiated, we render it. For the ng content part, the live hookers the place we instantiate it, and for the ng template is when we render it. There's a difference between ng content and ng template. And the second part, the injector tree. The injector tree is the according to what I know, the injector tree is the same as ng content or ng template. It is already defined when you declaration it in the template. For example, when you declare a component inside the ng template, and the ng template is inside the component. Yeah, the inject tree is the same of the ng content. But if you declaration the ng template outside of the component, it is different.
I see. So, okay, I get it. It is like you had a parent component, and inside, if you are putting ng content or ng template inside this parent, it's going to be the same anyway. For example, you have a service in the parent from the child inside the ng content or from ng template, you can inject it into the constructor, right? But if the ng template is outside of this parent selector thing, then yeah, it just not behave the same anymore. I mean, I think it is how I understand it. Is it correct, Yadong?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, sure. And okay, and I think we has that's it. That's all the question. Yeah, I mean, has the session uploaded on YouTube maybe in the next few minutes. I mean, no, after the meeting for some time. And yeah, it's actually now we are like 10 minutes out of the time, but let me just share something quick. So if anyone has anything to say, we can just do it before we left. So now there's an open announcement. You can just talk about anything that you just learned recently, or a meetup, or the conference that you're interesting, or any job opportunity or anything. So anyone, anything? I'll just and okay, then if no one has anything to say, I has a lot. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Wait, go ahead, man.
Hi everyone. My name is Wayne Gaku. I'm from Kenya, and yeah, it's always amazing like being amongst you guys, getting to learn more about Angular. I'm also a co-lead of Angular Kenya, so we are having a session this Thursday. We're going to be talking about Angular builders, and it's all about what's under the hood, under the CLI hood, Angular CLI hood. So if you're interested in joining us, I'll drop the link in the chat section. So yeah, we hope to see you at Angular Kenya. Yeah, so you can also follow us on Twitter, Angular Kenya, whenever you have, if you're interested in knowing more about what we do in the community. Yeah, it's always amazing, always catching up with Trung every now and then.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, I will include the link into the Twitter of Angular Singapore. So if you haven't followed yet, you can find all of the links into it. And yeah, that's way. That's about Angular Kenya. That's amazing people. And anyone has anything to share? Feel free. You can just unmute yourself. Now we has not a lot more. We are 10 minutes more after the time, but I think it is fine. Okay, so if no one has anything to say, I have something to say. Okay, so the first one is the next meetup on June from Angular Singapore is that we will have Minko will come to Angular Singapore, and he will talk about state of Angular, which is like how the framework is comparing with other, and how it is performing. And I think it's going to be an interesting talk. It just, we need to ship it to 11 p.m. because he in the US time zone. So if we do it at 7 p.m., it's going to be too early for Minko. It was like 4 a.m. in the morning. So I cannot ask him to wake up at 4 in the morning. I mean, I can, but it's maybe difficult. Okay. So the next one is going to be on 3rd of June, 11 p.m. And I will send the link into the Twitter very soon. feel free to go in, and I hope to see you in the next meetup. And I think that's the only thing that I wanted to share. And if you are still staying with us until now, thank you so much for staying. Appreciate your time. I wanted to say thank you for all of you has been staying. I mean, I learned a lot from Yadong. And of course, thanks for your time today, Yadong. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. And with that, I would like to end the meetup today. And if you still have any question for all of the speaker, or like for anything in Angular, just feel free to drop Robert a message on Twitter. We are here to help. Thank you, Anthony. Now I see you. And with that, see you in the next meetup. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
See you.
See you.
Thank you.